All right, somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to take down the MAGA lies that have been spreading through the internet like wildfire over the past few days. You guys may have seen this original video posted by MAGA YouTuber Nick Shirley. He's the same age as me. He makes YouTube and Twitter videos, and he goes around trying to expose fraud or expose oftentimes liberals for doing things. Well, he posted a video that went more viral than even he probably thought. It got 125 million views over the past few days, 614,000 likes, and people like Elon Musk, people like JD Vance, the biggest people in the MAGA movement have boosted this video without any actual external fact-checking mechanism, meaning Elon Musk, JD Vance and others have signal boosted and promoted this video without actually double checking any of the facts inside the video, without actually double checking to see if any of the information reported was verified. Well, guess what? A lot of it seems unverified and sketchy at best. A lot of it seems not just misleading, but deliberately constructed to create suspicion and outrage and turn that into political leverage. Well, guess what? Nick Shirley got 125 million views. He gained his 400,000 followers. JD Vance has acknowledged him. They're even starting an investigation due to Nick Shirley's video, and the evidence just gets weaker by the day. I want to use this video to debunk what we can. I'm not on the ground in Minnesota, but we do have some really solid debunks of what Nick Shirley is saying. And just to back up a little bit wider first, Dan Green says, as someone who actually lives in Minneapolis, Minnesota, I'm so sick of this Nick Shirley guy. Local media has been reporting on fraud all year long. There's countless investigations that are still ongoing. He isn't breaking any story, and his methods are incredibly disingenuous, like incredibly disingenuous. Here's the thing. If there is fraud going on, investigate that shit. Weed that shit out. There actually are solid examples of fraud in Minneapolis, in Minnesota. There was just a scheme that is concentrated within the Somali community. It's not racist to point out fraud that's happened, but the racist part comes when you look at every single Somali and you start to accuse them of fraud because you think they must be involved. That is the racist part. It's not racist to say, hey, there have been fraud committed by multiple different races and multiple different times. That's not crazy to say, but Nick Shirley posts this 42-minute video and he captions it this. Here is the 42 minutes of my crew and I exposing Minnesota fraud. This might be my most important work yet. We uncover over $110 million in just one day. Like it and share it around like wildfire. It's time to hold these corrupt politicians and fraudsters accountable. You think in one day you discovered more fraud than the entire state of Minnesota was able to discover in like a year? So I'm not going to play the video, but the video begins with Nick Shirley walking from daycare center to daycare center, filming from outside, basically trying to film and see like what's inside, which first of all, if this is a daycare center, if we're going to grant that, that's very weird that you're walking around filming. He usually shows up with two masked men who are his bodyguards, and then a third guy who's known for being around this area and kind of stalking around the daycares a lot. So already he shows up with a group of guys, and they're trying to film any children that are on the premises. Well, guess what? There are no children. At none of the daycares he shows up to, there is zero children whatsoever, which led to a lot of good questions like, okay, is he showing up at 5 a.m. and people are actually getting there at noon? Or is he showing up at 10 a.m. and the daycare only opens after school? People were wondering, like, this doesn't give us enough evidence. The lack of children in some unknown time of the day is not evidence of widespread systemic fraud. I'm going to be honest. When I first saw this video like 5 days ago, I didn't really fully know what I was watching. And I was like, that does seem weird. No children. But then I thought about it for one more second and I was like, wait a minute, that's not indicative of any sort of widespread fraud happening. He could have been showing up at the wrong time of the day, and it seems like that was partially the case. All of his claims collapse even under basic scrutiny. And let me just point out, this isn't the first time Nick Shirley has been confronted and seen everything that he says collapse. He visited Ukraine about a year back, and Cullen Reports, a friend of the show, confronted him after. This is Nick Shirley on the left. Nick Shirley on the left crumbles in just 1 second. So just watch how quickly his other narratives crumble, and then we'll return back to the Minnesota daycares. By the way, make sure you drop a like and subscribe to the Adam Mockler feed. We are going to hammer home this content in all of 2026.
So here's the caption you put up. $175 billion goes a long way. This is the capital of Ukraine. You're giving me all this great context. Where's the context in that tweet?
Yeah, if you go look at all the other tweets I put out, there's a lot of context as well.
Oh, so that's backtracking because you had a massive amount of backlash from Ukrainians, rightfully. But why didn't you put that in the original tweet?
Because that wasn't the idea of the original tweet.
Do you understand why people in this country are pretty pissed off with you?
One post does not define everything I did while I was in Ukraine.
Well, I think what you were doing is to try and show that there maybe isn't a war in Ukraine. You were basically trying to ride this sort of Tim Pool grifter type wave, saying, pulling silly faces, smirking at the people of this country, saying, this is where your tax dollars are going. You cannot avoid that. That is literally what you did.
Nick Shirley got completely cooked in this video because, get this, Nick Shirley recorded disingenuous videos that were edited up in particular manners to make Ukraine seem like it wasn't at war. He used editing. He used his own facial expressions and his own reactions to draw up a narrative that wasn't true about Ukraine. And Colin has every single right to be pissed off. Like, dude, why are you posting videos that just say the amount of money sent to Ukraine with no other context? It's clear that you're trying to prove some sort of point here. And let's just take this exact same, this video goes on for 15 more minutes. We're not going to watch the full thing. Let's take this exact same sliminess and manipulation of videos and try to apply it to this situation that we're currently looking at in Minnesota. According to a CNN article, it would be unusual for a center to operate without any children at all. That would be very, very unusual. So if what Nick Shirley was saying on his face, that every single daycare center was just completely closed down and getting millions of dollars, yeah, of course, that would be weird. But that's not what it's happening, it seems like. This says, it's not rare for centers to operate below their official capacity. CCAP funding, the kind of funding Shirley says is being stolen, is based on the eligible children enrolled at a facility, not its total capacity. So he already gets that wrong. Also, child care centers face strict regulations in Minnesota, Sanford told CNN. Under the law, currently, each licensed center should be visited at least once a year by an unannounced licensor who spends hours running through a checklist of roughly 400 items, she explained. Newly opened centers face even stricter scrutiny as a part of a recent bid to combat fraud. They can expect 4 visits in their first operating year. 3 of the visits will be unannounced. It's kind of funny, they do spell the name wrong. This is also one of Nick Shirley's signs of corruption in his eyes. The Quality Learning Center's name has a typo and it says Quality Learning Center. I feel like at the very least they should try to spell the word learning right. But that's not indicative of fraud or widespread fraud whatsoever. Let's watch this debunk from friend of the show, Simple Black Theory.
Here in Minnesota, massive fraud is taking place within the government and the Somali population. Here, this building alone, Quality Learning Center, is a daycare, yet they spelled learning wrong and they said leering. This daycare alone in 2025 has received $1.9 million from the government. And the strange things about these childcare centers is there's no one here right now. It's midday on a weekday. And if you were to try to go inside, it's completely closed and the windows are all blacked out. No one's working. Midday. Children should be in here. And this place is licensed for 99 children.
We about to fact check this first. If you mess with me, make sure you hit that follow button. Let's get it. What the hell is he talking about? First, the reason why you don't see any kids there on a midday is because they're permanently closed. Which makes me wonder, why didn't you show nobody what it said on that door? And I tried to read it, but you literally blurred it out. Now, the reason why they're closed isn't because of fraud. It's because they're a bad daycare center. I mean, if you was an actual journalist, you would have been able to find all the investigations they had since 2022. Their last investigation was in July. See that all the violations are related to child safety, which is why the facility has been in probation multiple times, which makes me believe that that paper up there is a sanctioning paper. I know this because that's one of their violations that they didn't post it up. And if you see the citation, it's about sanctioning and removing licenses, which means that this facility is probably on a conditional license again. And also why they only have 1 star. I would also like to add that it was the Trump administration DHS that actually audited the facility this year. There is no reports that any fraudulent activities were happening.
This actually perfectly lines up with what we just read from CNN moments ago, that child care centers face strict regulations. If child care centers face strict regulations and unannounced checks and visits from inspectors, that means this daycare center likely got an unexpected visit and then was shut down, which means The system is working as intended. That doesn't mean that this system or this daycare center slipped through the cracks. That means this daycare center was caught as intended. It's like when you see an article that in Arkansas, they found 2 fake ballots that they threw out and people go, oh my God, it's evidence that there's widespread fraud. No. That's evidence that there is not widespread fraud. If the big story is that 2 ballots were found and then thrown out, that means the system is working as intended to flag fraudulent ballots, to throw them out, and that means it's so rare that this happens that it's a national story that these 2 ballots were found. You get what I'm saying? It's not the system failing when 2 ballots are found. It's the system working when 2 fraudulent ballots are found. In the same vein, when you find a daycare center that has been closed down, that's not because it slipped through the cracks. That means the inspectors showed up and said, close this shit down. So to continue right here, the video does not at all address those regulations. Its explosive impact is one example of the growing power of the right-wing media ecosystem, largely fueled by independent creators whom the president has favored over traditional news networks. Nick Shirley, for example, the kid in the story, was invited to speak with Trump at the White House in October as a part of a roundtable. He talked to Attorney General Pam Bondi. He interviewed all of these people. This at least bodes well for this community because, man, if Donald Trump is leaning on content creators and YouTubers to help him draft policy, does that mean that President Newsom will have me interviewing his Attorney General? You and I in the audience will be helping push the policy. We'll see what happens. Make sure you're subscribed if you wanna be along for the ride. But to continue here, they showed up to the Quality Leering Center and they began to interview the owner of it, who says, in fact, it's not fraudulent.
What would you say to Nick Shirley, the YouTuber, if he was standing in front of you right now?
I have nothing against him himself, but I do have something against the rhetoric. It's if you're gonna be a journalist, just have a moral compass. Like, do what you do correctly. If you catch business that are fraud, no one here is with that, or we don't support that as a community.
Yeah, no one's gonna defend fraudulent businesses. We'd all be like, yeah, close that shit down. I like how he delineates. He's like, I'm not even mad at Nick Shirley. I'm just mad at the rhetoric that's coming from these types of people. That's a really mature stance.
I don't support that myself. I was born and raised here. I'm not for fraud. Like the notion that, hey, a certain batch of somebody got caught, so all of them support it. It's like, no one, if in any community, any mishaps that happen, the rest of the community obviously doesn't want that to happen.
That's where the racial profiling comes in. He's saying that, just because fraud happened in the past in one Somali area does not mean that you can racially profile the entire Somali community.
Staying on all of our names, as you guys can see. We don't want that to happen. We don't take part in that. We don't like that. We don't want that in our communities. But just to say, hey, a certain company got caught, so they must all do it, and I feel like that's what he's doing, I'm not a fan of it.
2 to 10 p.m. may not be your typical daycare hours, so can you explain why it is that you operate during these hours?
The reason for that is we're after school hours. So most of our clients, not most of our clients, all of our clients is after school hours.
Interesting. So Quality Learning Center is an after-school daycare, which further explains why Nick Shirley did not see any kids when he showed up at about 1. I mean, someone even tracked this building down, took a photo of this. It says Quality Learning Childcare, hours of operation, 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. Then they found Nick Shirley's phone screen during the video, and it says it's 1:09 p.m. So they showed up to these places before they even opened and said that was proof of fraud. Now, earlier in the video, somebody said this place had been closed down for a bit, and I can't verify if it was closed down or not because it seems like there were children there the next day running into the Quality Leering Center, but this is exactly why you should not take hard stances or make claims that have not been verified whatsoever. You can't just base fraud off of you showing up to a video in the middle of the day. Like, that is not how any investigation works. Going back to this tweet from Dan Green, it says, as someone who lives in Minneapolis, I'm so sick of Nick Shirley. Local media has been reporting on fraud all year long. There's countless investigations. His methods are incredibly disingenuous. It's so true. Local media and investigators and different wings of the police have been working on fraud investigations in normal ways. You don't just show up outside of a daycare center with a camera, wave your camera around with 2 armed security guards behind you and say, Why are there no kids coming out to play? Kids, come out to play. I want to see you out here, kids. And he's like, wait a minute, there's no kids? There must be massive, widespread fraud. Again, just to bring it back, if there is fraud of any kind, investigate that shit, root that shit out, get it out of here. What I don't like to see is targeting a community just because they're Somali and then reverse engineering the idea that there must be fraud somewhere because something is weird here. Listen, I'm going to leave it there. If you appreciate the videos we make on this channel and you want more coverage of this, drop a like, subscribe. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.